All right, in this video, we're going to talk about advanced limits. So this is a topic we've talked about before. We're going to talk about limits, but these are just some little extra tricky ones. So looking at number one, we want to find the limit as x approaches 2 of f of g of x. So it's a function composition with limits. All right, so this one, just like before, I need to make sure the left-handed limit is equal to the right-handed limit. If the two limits are equal to each other, then that's the limit, or it's a double-sided limit. So I'm going to check the limit as x approaches 2 from the left of f of g of x. All right, by the way, this one is f of x, and the right graph is g of x. All right, the tricky thing about this one, and once you've heard it, I think you'll remember this. It's not real likely this will be on the AP exam, but it's possible. So I want to find the limit as x approaches 2 of g of x first. So the inside part. So I'm going to look at this graph over here. What is the limit as x is approaching 2 from the left? So from the left, x is approaching 2. That y value is 1. Okay, but the tricky part about the limit composition part is I've got to then find the limit of f of x as x is approaching something. And the something is kind of tricky. So the limit as x approaches 2 from the left of g of x is 1. So I need to find the limit as x approaches 1 of f of x. Now here's the tricky part. Do I look at it from the left, from the right? So if I look on this original graph, the g of x, how was I approaching 1? It was approaching 1 from above, right? So I'm going to put that little symbol to recognize that I'm actually going to find the limit of f of x as x approaches 1 from the right. Because the g of x was approaching 1 from above, so it's positive. If I was approaching 1 from underneath, I would have put a negative right there to signify that I'm going to find the limit as x approaches 1 from the left. So that is the tricky part about this one. If it doesn't make sense yet, we'll do some more and hopefully it'll start to click. Okay, so now look at the f function. The limit as x approaches 1 from the right gives you 1. All right, so now let's find the limit as x approaches 2 from the right of f of g of x. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to find the limit as x is approaching 2 from the right. Draw from the right. I'm approaching 1 from above. So this is going to be very similar. Limit as x approaching 1 from above means I'm going to find the limit as x approaches 1 from the right of f of x. And that's still 1. So since those agree, they're the same thing, our answer for the original problem is 1. So the tricky part about that function composition is I look at the inner part, and if it's coming from above, I find the limit of the outside function as it's approaching that from the right. If it's approaching it from below, I would find the next limit as x approaches that number from the left. So a little tricky. If you get it, great. If not, we'll do some more. All right, next one. This time it's not function composition. It's just saying what's the limit as x approaches 1 of whatever f of x is plus g of x minus 5. So there's going to be two parts to this. I'm going to use this yellow for my g function. And you see that g minus 5 or the x minus 5. If you think about like translations, if you had like g of x minus 5, that means the whole graph shifts to the right 5. Because it says minus 5, so it shifts to the right. So I'm going to draw this whole graph, and I'm going to shift it to the right 5. And then I'll tell you what I do to think of what I'm plugging in. Because this can be a little tricky. All right, so come back. Here we go. All this. That little minus sign means I'm going to shift my graph right 5. So the whole graph, oh wait, it undid it. Circle it again. Oh, man. All right, here we go. Circle it. Now moves to the right 5. Why isn't this working like I thought it would? Just go to my right 5. There it goes. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I went 5, right? All right, so now if I'm looking as x is approaching 1, it's still right there. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to circle it. So now that my graph went to the right 5, there we go. Okay. Now I'm going to look as what is x approaching, or as it's approaching 1, so it's the limit as x is approaching 1 from the left of f of x plus, kind of forgot to say all this stuff. I was so excited to move the graph over. All right, so the first part, f of x, the limit as x approaches 1 from the left there. From the left, the y value it's approaching is -2. Plus whatever we get when the g function is approaching 1 from the left. So 1 from the left looks like it's right there at 1, which gives me -1. All right, so you could picture doing that, like sliding the whole graph, but what I do, because I can't really do this on my piece of paper, is I would plug in 1 right there, and I do 1 minus 5 and get -4. So really I'm looking at what is the graph looking like at -4. As x is approaching 1 from the left, really I'm looking at when it's approaching -4 from the left. And that y value there would be 1. So if you can't picture sliding it, just plug in that x value right there and then picture what number that is. So 1 minus 5 gives us the -4. All right, the limit as x approaches 1 from the right of all this stuff. Okay, 1 from the right for the f function, pretty straightforward. 1 from the right, that y value is 1. As it's approaching -4 from the right, that y value is -2. So I've got a plus a -2, which is still -1. Those agree. So that is the double-handed or double-sided limit. All right, that's really all that there's to this, but we're just going to do some more to really get it down. All right, so this time limit as x approaches 1 of g of f of x. So notice those are just flipped. So if you wanted to, you could pause this video, try it on your own, and then come back. But we gotta make sure the left-handed limit and the right-handed limit agree. So I'm gonna start with finding the limit as x approaches 1 from the left of the inner one, so f of x. Okay, here's the f of x. As x approaching 1 from the left, my y value is -2. That means I'm gonna find the limit as x approaches -2. Now I gotta think, okay, is it from the right or from the left? Well, this one came from below, right? The first one was approaching -2 from underneath. So I would say from the left on the next part, the outer part. So now I find that limit. The limit as x approaches -2 from the left is 2. And do it the other way. The limit as x approaches 1 from the right of g of f of x means find the limit of f of x as x approaches 1 from the right. So 1 from the right, it's approaching 1, and it came from above. So that's why I put that plus sign, which means I'm going to find the limit of g of x as x approaches 1 from the right. That would be 2. Those numbers agree, so the answer is 2. All right. Couple more things that could go wrong, so don't just skip the video and think, oh, I have it now. You probably do, but there's a couple more weird things that can happen. Number 4, composition. So I need to think that from underneath or from above. I need to make sure the left-handed limit and the right-handed limit agree. So I'm going to do the inner one first. The limit of f of x as x approaches 3 from the left. Okay, well, here's 3. From the left, it's approaching infinity. That's the limit, right? Oh, don't write that. No, take that away. It's composition, so I need to say x approaching infinity. Now, can I approach infinity from the left or from the right? I can only approach infinity from the left. I can't approach infinity from the right. So in this case, I would not need to worry about that with infinity from underneath and from above. So now just find the limit as x approaches infinity of g of x. Well, as g of x is going to infinity, the limit is just -2. So again, with infinity, you can't approach infinity from the right. You can approach negative infinity from the right, but you can't approach negative infinity from the left. So in these problems, you wouldn't worry about it if you have infinity right here. All right. So what is the limit as x approaches 3 from the right of f of x? Well, it's also approaching infinity. So that tells me the limit as x approaches infinity of g of x, which is still 2. Those agree, so it's 2. All right. Number 1, or why is it number 1? Oh, it's number 5. I don't know what that is. All right, so number 5, now it looks like I have some multiplication, and the f function went to the right 3. So if I'm finding the limit as x approaches 4 from the left of this mess, find the limit of each piece. So first, find the limit as x approaches 4 from the left. Okay, but this is one of those sliding ones. Translation, so plug in 4. If I plugged in 4 right there, excuse me, I'd get 1. So find the limit as x approaches 1 from the left. From the left, it's approaching, it looks like -2. Now, it's not a composition, so I don't need to think of from underneath or from above, but I'm going to multiply it by whatever I get when I find the limit as x approaches 4 from the left of the g function. G, okay, here's 4. So from the left, the g function is approaching 0. -2 times 0 is 0. Now find the right hand of the limit. The limit as x approaches 4 from the right of f of x minus 3, g of x. Okay, if I plugged in 4 right there, I'd get 1, so I know I'm looking at 1. As it's approaching 4, well, in this case 1, from the right, it's approaching 1. That's the limit. The limit as x approaches 4 from the right of the g function is still 0, so that's just 0. All right, so far these have all had limits, so you can probably, what is going on here? I don't know what all this extra stuff is. Don't think that should be here. I think it should just be that. Sorry for the PowerPoint. Your notes should be fine. All right, the limit as x approaches -3 from the left, this is a function composition. So I need to be thinking, okay, how am I approaching the numbers? Am I approaching from underneath, from above? That tells me the next limit. Okay, so to find the number that goes here, I need to find the limit as x approaches g, or the limit of g of x as x approaches -3 from the left. All right, here's a g function. Here's -3. So from the left, the y value is approaching 1, and it's approaching 1 from under. So that means I'll find the limit of the f function as x approaches 1 from the right. From the right, I get 1. All right, now I do the right-handed limit. The limit as x approaches -3 from the right of f of g of x is equal to the limit of something, and I'll find that something by finding the limit of g of x as x approaches -3 from the right. So from the right, I'm still approaching 1, but this time from above. So I put the plus sign, which means in the next problem, I'll find the limit. Uh-oh, I think I did something wrong. This is wrong, isn't it? You probably already noticed that. You're probably screaming at me like, this guy is an idiot. Sorry. So the limit of f of x as x approaches 1 from the left would be -2. Looks like I just probably got that wrong. And the limit as x approaches 1 from the right is 1. All right, those numbers don't match, which they had in all the other times, right? But we know if the left-handed limit does not equal the right-handed limit, the double-sided limit does not exist. All right, so that's all the notes. If you have any questions next time I see you, ask me in class.